Hey guys, and welcome back to my podcast. Today, I don't really have that many interesting things to share because my previous episode, like the episode that I posted before this, I literally made last night. So, there isn't really that much stuff to talk about, and there's also not really, I haven't really had that many interesting thoughts today, I feel like, compared to, yesterday, because honestly, yesterday and today kind of blend together in my head. So, there's not really that much to talk about today, but I will say that today I was thinking about how, I don't know, I just get kind of annoyed, to be honest, with people who just don't have a backbone. And I have talked about this in my first episode on this channel, on this podcast, but I want to give you this example that I was thinking about today. And this applies to a lot of people, but this is related to this one example. So basically, there's this girl on TikTok. I don't know if I know her username right now, currently, because I think she changed it for reasons that I'm literally about to mention, right now. But I think her name is Lottie, Lottie, and I know her old username. Well, I'll tell you it in a second, but I know what her old username was. But she changed it, and the reason why is because she had a shift in opinion on a topic that is kind of interesting, I guess. Let me just tell you what I wanted to say instead of being like this and working my way around the topic. Okay, basically, there's this girl on TikTok, and I've been following her since 2020. And first of all, I didn't even realize that she's actually 20 years old, I'm pretty sure. I don't know why, I just assumed she was closer in age to me. I mean, granted, when I downloaded TikTok in 2020, and when she downloaded TikTok, I think she was 16 and I was 18 when I downloaded TikTok in 2020. So not a huge difference, but I just kind of assumed that she was 18. And also I feel like back then I just kind of mentally it just seemed like a much larger age difference or age gap compared to now, a 21-year-old and a 23-year-old, because I'm 23 right now. To me, there isn't as big of a difference there, but when you're 18 and you're talking to a 16-year-old, there's a huge mindset difference there. Anyways, so I always thought she was my age, but she's actually younger than me. And basically, she actually did run a pro-life activism page. And here's the thing, I'm not a pro-life person at all. I'm pro-choice, but I did follow her because I think she just came on my For You page back then, and I thought she was kind of interesting because, for one thing, she was really articulate and eloquent, and I did like that because I personally feel like I'm the opposite of that. I think that I have really good thoughts, and I would like to say that I'm pretty intelligent, but I'm not good at expressing my thoughts. I feel like it's kind of really scrambled up there in my brain, and I'm very scatterbrained, and I just have all these thoughts and emotions and things in my head, but I can't ever properly express them in the way that I'd like to, which is why I also don't think that I'm a good teacher. Whenever I try to explain things to people, I just can't do it. I literally can't. That's also why I'm really bad at storytelling, because I just forget details all the time, and then I'm like, oh yeah, but there's this one thing, and it's just it's not ideal, and that prevents a lot of other things that I want from happening. Or I don't know, I would love nothing more than to be a funny storyteller, but unfortunately I'm not funny and I'm not a storyteller. So yeah, but I am smart, I would like to think, so at least I have that going for me, I think. But anyways, this girl, so she is very articulate and eloquent, so she's something that I would like to be, I guess. So when I follow people on TikTok, that's not a representative thing, or that's not a representation of the type of beliefs that I have. It's more I just follow for, I don't know, really random reasons. Some people I just follow because they're pretty, or some people I just follow because they're I don't know, wise. Some people I follow even though I strongly disagree with them, just to hear what they have to say. I don't comment. I'm not a TikTok commenter at all, but I just like to hear what other people have to say, I want to hear people out. And so yeah, I follow this girl, and she has been a pro-life activist, not just pro-life, but an actual pro-life activist for years. And first of all, I think that's harmful, obviously. Obviously if you have similar beliefs to me. I don't know if that's obvious objectively, but obviously in my opinion that's harmful. But I think that she was just such a strong pro-life activist and pro-life supporter, and she did have some good thoughts too. Like, I will say, like, she had some good opinions, but I mainly just followed her because I just wanted to hear what she had to say, and she has a very unique story also. And then I think a couple of years later, she ended up going on Jubilee, actually. So I did follow her and know about her before she ever went on Jubilee. But I've seen like all these different transitions in her life. Like, I think at one point she was like a Christian, and then I think she's ethnically Jewish. So like she has always like kind of been like, well, I'm ethnically Jewish but religiously Christian. And then granted, at this time she was a young girl, so like I'm sure like for her, you know, it's a confusing time for her when she's like a young teenager trying to figure out what she believes in and what she thinks and everything. But I just think that it's still harmful though to have like certain ideologies that I feel like she perpetuates. Also, it's like one thing if you're like a pro-life person who is at least understanding of other people's perspectives, but she was not. I don't think, like, she was definitely like very much so like the type of person to argue with people and belittle them too. Like, she's not like an empathetic person in my opinion. She's not understanding. And like, if you as a listener right now are pro-life or are not pro-choice, like, I'm not gonna crucify you for what you believe in, because I can understand that argument too. So I just want to put that out there. But I don't think that she is like that. She's never been like that. I feel like she's very much like a rude-ish kind of person sometimes, like very aggressive, not even just passive aggressive, but like actually aggressive too, with her words. But anyways, she was on Jubilee. I thought she did a good job on Jubilee, even though like she was supporting like the pro-life team. Like, you know, I liked her. And then I recently saw, like, I don't know, like not that long ago that she apparently is now no longer pro-life and she's actually pro-choice. And I thought that was interesting. And, you know, I thought, you know, like, well, that's amazing. Like, I'm really glad that she's woken up, that she's no longer pro-life. But then I started to like look into why she's no longer pro-life. And so she posted like some story times or like videos explaining her story and explaining why she's no longer pro-life. And the general gist of it, to me, from what I got from that, was that she isn't pro-life anymore and she's pro-choice because she herself had to get an abortion in a situation where she was financially unable to support a baby, essentially. And I thought that was so strange to me, because how can you be this strong pro-life activist for years and like belittle people who are pro-choice and do all these things and have literally no empathy for people in other positions and just not even be understanding in any type of way? But then all of a sudden you specifically think that you need to get an abortion. You have an experience where basically, I think she's like 20 years old now, and so she, I think, got pregnant, like she and her boyfriend, I think, were like pregnant, I guess, and then I think she right now is financially unable to have a baby, so she decided to get an abortion, which, by the way, like, I'm not hating on that. Like, I don't care if she got an abortion or not. That's not what I'm annoyed about. What I'm annoyed about is the fact that she switched up and like she's pro-choice now, but to be honest, I'd rather her just be pro-life. Like, we don't need people like that supporting pro-choice movements or just any type of movement, honestly. Like, people who will switch up just because now all of a sudden it affects them, I think that's so stupid. like it makes me so angry, because that to me tells me you literally have no empathy and you never did. And I actually think a lot of people, unfortunately, in the world are like this, where they are just genuinely not empathetic and they absolutely rule something out, or they just don't even care to entertain something simply because they personally don't experience that thing, or they just can't even wrap their mind around what it would be like to experience that thing. And I mean, that's kind of related to empathy, but also, like, I just think that's so crazy to me that there's so many people in the world who just don't care about something until it directly affects them, and then once it affects them on a personal level, then all of a sudden they're going to switch up and they're going to now all of a sudden get an abortion and be pro-choice. Like, do not do that, okay? I would have much rather her just stick to being pro-life, honestly. Even if she perpetuates harmful ideologies, at least be fucking consistent. Like, literally, why are you switching up? Like, that's the thing, is like, these people like her and other people too, like, they just have no backbone. Like, and if you're asking me, I think the reason why so many people don't have a backbone and they can't stick up for what they truly believe in, like, even if it's something that I disagree with, even if you believe something that I do not believe in, or something that I don't like or I think is bad, at least, well, within reasonable limits, like don't be like Hitler or something, but like within reasonable limits, don't all of a sudden switch up. Like stand on your fucking ground. Like if you claim to be someone, stick to being that person. I mean, obviously, like there's nuance there, but generally speaking, if you're going to stand so hard and say that you're this one type of person, you better not back down in that kind of way. Like, I don't know, it just really, really pissed me off. And it's also just so hypocritical. And again, people like that just don't have any true sense of self, in my opinion. And here's my answer to a lot of the world's issues. I think the vast majority of the world's problems, like almost every world problem or a good amount of world problems, all come down to the insecurities of mankind and the insecurities that people, whether on an individual or collective level, have. Like, I'm telling you right now, I genuinely think like most of the world's problems come down to insecurities. When it comes to someone like her, like that TikToker, by the way, I'll tell you her name. Her old username was pro-life Jewess, I think. I don't know if that's a bad word also. That's just her username. I don't know if that's a wrong word to say. Someone tell me if it is, please, because basically I was like looking on Reddit to see if anyone else felt similarly to me, and spoiler alert, they do. But yeah, and like someone was like, oh, like it's crazy that that's her like name, like that's her username. And then I looked up that word, and then I didn't really do any research. I just saw that it said something about it being offensive, but I didn't like look. Like all I saw was the word offensive, and then I had to like go downstairs, so I didn't really have time to look into it. But yeah, I won't say it again in case that's not a word I should be saying. But also it's in her username, so I don't think it would be a bad thing to say. Anyways, that was her old username. I don't know, I forgot what it is now. But okay, but yeah, I genuinely think that most of the world's problems come from insecurities, because for someone like this TikToker, I can just tell that you don't have a strong sense of self. And when you don't have a strong sense of self, it's usually because you don't know who you are, you haven't found yourself, and you probably have a bunch of insecurities. Like genuinely, I'm not even kidding, like there is such a huge relationship that insecurities have on everyone's lives if they're not good people. Like I think I said this, I don't even know what I just said, but I said this in like a podcast episode that I'm trying to make for the future, but I genuinely think that insecurities absolutely inhibit the ability to be a good person for like a lot of people in the world. You know, that can definitely prevent people from acting morally in situations. And anyways, that's a different episode. But yeah, I genuinely think though that if we figured out as a society how to get rid of insecurities, because I know people say that insecurities are natural, they're normal, they're human, which they are, but I also think that as a society though, we should instead also try to find ways to fix every single person's insecurities, because that would do wonders for the world. Like for example, something that comes to mind when I think about what I just said is the fact that poverty exists, and a social hierarchy exists, and class differences and social inequality exist. And when you really think about it, like for example, when you think about a billionaire, I think this is a common perception online of billionaires, that they should absolutely not hold that much money, that much wealth. And it's kind of absurd that they do. And I personally agree with that. I don't think anyone should have that much money when there are so many people suffering in this world. But genuinely, like, I just want to know, like, what is preventing them from giving out that money? You know, like, if it were me, like, I'm saying this so honestly, like, if it were me, if I were making so much money, if I were making $1 billion, like, I would not be keeping that money. Like, I know it sounds all, like, easy to say that when you're not in that position, or maybe I just sound pretentious for saying it, like, oh yeah, like, I'm so much better than everyone else, I wouldn't do that. But I genuinely would not do that, because I stick to my word. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. Like, for example, I sound so annoying because I sound like I'm like trying to brag about how good of a moral person I am. I know that that's how I sound, but I genuinely believe that I would not do that. And I have examples to back myself up, but we can talk about that another time. When you think about a billionaire though, like, it's just kind of insane, because if that were me, I only need maybe like a few $1 million max, you know, and honestly a lot of that money would be for like my family and friends. I do not need that much money. After a few $1 million, that's my cap. Okay, that's my limit. And after that, all that money is literally, I would not keep it for myself. I would absolutely give it away. And by give it away, I don't just mean like donate it to like a random place, whatever. I mean like I want to create like a long-term solution, because me donating money to a shelter or some other facility, I think that's a great thing to do. But I also would want my money, especially if it's a large amount of money, like if I were a billionaire, I would want that money to be able to be invested in a way where it would impact society in a much long-term type of way. You know, that's what I think. But the thing for me is like, what is causing these billionaires to not let go of their money? What is causing them to just hoard all this money for absolutely no reason? And on top of that, they're obviously not doing it ethically. They don't have this money in an ethical way. But what is causing them to do this? In my opinion, it's insecurities, because obviously we all know that being wealthy is a social symbol for success, and it's such a huge privilege in every way, but also it's a part of being at the top of the social hierarchy. And when you want to be at the top of a social hierarchy or just be a part of a social hierarchy, it's usually stemming from insecurities in some way. It's not an inherent thing that humans naturally want to be. You know, like I don't think a human is just born automatically just wanting to be a part of a social hierarchy. I think that's something that is conditioned into humans, and I think that it's related to how people want others to perceive them. I mean, I feel like everything goes back to Mars because I feel like that's how I feel about plastic surgery, how I feel about this, like a lot of things. I just try to imagine a person being placed on Mars and see how that changes the issue that we're talking about. So like, for example, if we take a billionaire and we put them on Mars and they were the only person living there, do you think they would really care about having $1 billion? No, because that money would be, one, valueless, and two, there's no people around, so that makes it extra valueless or unvaluable. That's probably the better word. So yeah, I honestly do think that it stems from insecurity and people just wanting to be a part of a social hierarchy, and more specifically at the top of the social hierarchy. And if you want to be a part of a social hierarchy, and especially at the top, it's definitely, in my opinion, coming from your desire to be perceived by others in a positive way or whatever it is. And yeah, you could say, well, oh, I just want all this money, just to be happy, or like I just want a huge amount of money so I can support myself. Or you could also just say that you want all this money to buy anything you want in the world. But I still think that comes from insecurities in some way. And yeah, there's always insecurities when it comes to this topic and most topics, but yeah. And so that is just like one example of how I think that is the case, and that's why I think that the social hierarchy that we have in the world still exists. That's why these people still perpetuate this social hierarchy. And unfortunately, the people who are billionaires, people who actively want to be that rich and keep all that money, they already were insecure anyway going into the social hierarchy. Like if they worked their way up there, supposedly worked their way up there, but if they if they climbed up that ladder, they probably were already insecure to begin with. And this is kind of related to my celebrity episode that I'm trying to make, but that's another episode for later. I won't talk about that right now, but yeah, that's why I think that poverty, for example, is one way in which insecurities play a role, because poverty exists because this system has been in place and it continues to exist because of these people at the top of the pyramid, essentially. That's just one example though. Poverty, for example, as I said, is one way in which insecurities, whether on a personal level or a collective level, plays a role. And there are so many examples I can think of. I think this applies to so many things, almost everything, even like domestic abuse. We all know that people who are abusers or like commit domestic violence acts, I guess, they are not good people. And I mean, I don't know, I just genuinely, like, if I see a narcissist, I'm gonna think you're insecure. Like, you are insecure regardless of what it is. If you're a narcissist, you're insecure. If you're a bad person, you're insecure. If, like, that's genuinely just how I view life. And honestly, that's kind of like changed my perspective on a lot of people, to be honest, because if you weren't insecure, you would not act like that. If you were not insecure, you would act like a good person and you would be a good person. That's just as simple as it is. And so when it comes to domestic abuse, that's also what I think. These people, they perpetuate these horrible acts of violence against these other people because of their own personal insecurities, whether it's like an insecurity that they realize is there or not. Because I think a lot of people, they probably don't make that association that it's related to insecurities. But again, if you really love yourself, if you really had no insecurities, why would you ever abuse anybody? Like, you know what I mean? You would just be happy and live your life peacefully. Like, there would be absolutely no need for any of that. It's only when you are insecure, when you are a vicious person on the inside, that you would commit acts of atrocity. That's not a phrase. You would do horrible things to other people. And that's why I think most of the world's problems come from insecurities. It's literally just what I think. Yeah, okay. I have been yapping for way too long. I don't know what else to say. I guess something else I wanted to say really briefly, though, related to that TikToker. Another thing that kind of bothered me about what she said in that TikTok explaining her situation was that she was basically saying that she was kind of indoctrinated by this cult that kind of made her think that way. And I just want to know, and maybe I'll make this a different episode because I don't really want to go into too much depth here right now, but I just want to know, like, genuinely, how much can we blame cult victims for being a part of that cult? Because I think when somebody tells you that they were in a cult, usually your automatic opinion of them or your automatic belief is that you just kind of feel maybe bad for them, maybe, or like you just feel sad for them, or it's kind of almost like you just view them as if they didn't have any autonomy or any brain cells, like they didn't have any thought put into place, like they had no critical thought in that position, and that they were completely brainwashed, because that is what a cult generally tries to do. But there's no way that every single person in a cult is just brain dead all the time. There's no way we have that many dumb people in the world. Like, respectfully, like, how can indoctrination and how can brainwashing affect and infiltrate everybody's minds? You know, that's a scary thought. Like, are that many people just not using any form of critical thought at all? And so to what extent can you blame these people for being in a cult? Because with this girl, I don't know why, I just like don't think that I want to give her as much grace as I might give to maybe a different person in a different cult, so-called cult. I don't really know the details of whatever she was in, but I don't know, because sometimes I feel like people use that as an excuse to almost be like, well, I was in a cult, so that excuses my bad actions, or that excuses my bad and horrible beliefs, or that excuses why I was being the way that I was. But I'm just like, well, you were still a person, though. You still had thoughts. You have sentience. Is that a word? I think so. You should be able to be fully conscious of your decisions and actions and thoughts. So what do you mean you just let things completely slide? What do you mean you just genuinely had no thoughts, like, and you just accepted what other people told you? Again, I think that comes from insecurities, because I feel like if you were very strongly sure of how you feel about things in life, and if you figure out who you are as a person, you would know what's right and what's not right, and you would not give in to a cult as much. But I feel like we as a society give a lot of grace to cult victims when I don't necessarily think that we should. Like, I think that they deserve some amount of grace and respect, and some cult victims have suffered so much, I'm sure, but I also think that we can't just immediately think like, oh, you were in a cult, okay, fine, your brain was literally just the equivalent of a 2-year-old baby's brain. Like, you had no thoughts, you had no ability to form any conscious thoughts in your mind about things, or you couldn't question anything because you were in a cult. But I'm like, we have a huge gift. Our human brains are such a blessing and such a huge gift. Why are people not using it? You should be able to use it, hypothetically and theoretically. Like, it's not like a cult just completely shuts off your brain unless you're stupid. No offense. Okay, I'm not trying to call people stupid. I'm really not. But we all have brains, and we are all capable of intelligent thoughts. So I don't like it when people just kind of blow that off, or like ignore that fact, I guess, and they instead blame the fact that they did some bad things because they were in a cult, when they still are really fortunate to have a great and intelligent brain, and they could have had other thoughts and could have had other actions. So that's just what I think. maybe I'll make that another episode. I don't know, I just have so many thoughts, but I don't really want to talk anymore about this, and I kind of need to lay down, so I'm gonna go. But yeah, hope you guys are having a great day. I'm gonna go now. Bye.